Hey, Transmath class, these are your notes for 2.4. We're going to look at fractions with improper and proper fractions and the difference between those. Okay, so starting off, just to review, we're going to order some fractions from least to greatest. It says sketch number lines if needed. Sometimes that's helpful, but another trick that you can use, so if you have a very small numerator and a large denominator, if there's a big difference between those two, that means it's a really small fraction. You know, if you were comparing 1/10 compared to 9/10, obviously 1/10 is much smaller. And because 1 is closer to 0 than it is to 10, that number is way less than 1/2. So 1/10 is the smallest fraction. Okay. Now 1/2 is right in the middle, so that's going to be next. 3/4 would be halfway between 1/2 and 1, so that's next. Oops. And then 9/10, that's going to be the biggest one because that's really close to 1. If you broke a number line up into 10 parts, 9/10 would be right next to the 1. So that's going to be your largest fraction. Okay, so when the numerator is very close to the denominator, that's a large fraction. Now this is very close as well. 3 is close to 4, but because you're only breaking it into 4 parts, you know, then 3 out of 4 is not going to be as big as 9 out of 10 is. Okay. Okay, next one. So look for the smallest one. So I'm looking for, you know, probably 1s on top, and I want the numerator to be as far away from the denominator as possible for the smallest fraction. So 1/4, that's going to be my smallest one. Okay. Now my next fraction has a 1 on top, 1/2. That's smaller than either of these two because 2 is closer to 3 than it is to 0, and 8 is definitely closer to 9 than it is to 0. So we're going to have 1/2 is going to be next. Okay, and then we're going to have 2/3 and then 8/9. All right. Okay, so here we're going to talk about proper and improper fractions. And we're going to use number sense to compare proper and improper fractions. Okay, so proper fractions are fractions that are less than 1. So let's list some. Anytime you list a fraction that has a top number that's smaller than the bottom number, that is a proper fraction. So 2/3, 1/2, 1/10, 99/100. As long as the top number is smaller than the bottom number, that's how you know that it's a proper fraction. Okay. Now with improper fractions are equal to or greater than 1. Okay, so what that means is either the top and bottom numbers can be the same, like 3/3, or the top number has to be bigger than the bottom number. Okay, so these, I'm going to give a bunch of examples of improper fractions. Okay, as long as the top number is either equal to the bottom number, which is equal to 1, or the top number is bigger than the bottom number. These are all improper fractions. You could list, you know, anything you want as long as the top number is bigger than the bottom number. Okay, those are all called improper fractions. All right, top number equal to the bottom or bigger. Top number is bigger than the bottom. All right, proper fractions, the top number is always smaller than the bottom number. Okay. All right, write an inequality comparing the two fractions. Now, typically what they're going to give you is one improper and one proper. Improper fractions are always bigger than proper fractions. Okay, so improper is going to be greater than proper. Okay, that's always going to be true. Now, they have less than signs here, so I could say proper fractions will be less than improper. Okay, so what that means is I want to put the proper fraction here, because these are all less than signs, and I want to put the improper fraction over here. So proper fraction 9/10, improper 7/7. Okay, proper fraction is 6/8, improper is 5/5. So 6/8 is less than 5/5. If the top number is smaller than the bottom number, that means it's less than 1. If they're equal or the top is bigger, then that's an improper fraction. It's either 1 or greater than 1. Okay, proper fraction 1/5, improper fraction 3/3. Okay, similar, I think I just pulled some of those examples, so they all have less than signs, right? So let's pick out the proper fraction, put it in the left blank, improper fraction, put it in the right blank, okay? So proper fraction, 4/7, improper, 8/8. 4/7 is less than 8/8. Proper fraction is 1/9, improper, 7/6. 1/9 is less than 7/6. Proper fraction, 6/8, improper, 5/5. 6/8 is less than 5/5. Proper fraction, 3/7, improper, 9/9. 3/7 is less than 9/9. Proper fraction, 9/10, improper, 7/7. 9/10 is less than 7/7. Proper fraction is 1/5, improper fraction, 3/3. 1/5 is less than 3/3. All right. Okay, so remember, 3/3 is also an improper fraction, right? So anything, when you start at 1 and go this way, these are where your improper fractions are. Your proper fractions fall between 0 and 1. These are proper fractions here. So it's clear to see improper fractions are always bigger than these ones over here, these proper fractions, okay? So that's our power concept right here. All improper fractions, right? All improper fractions are found at 1 or to the right of 1 on the number line. Okay, example 2, show the fraction in the correct location on the number line. So we got 2/3. Well, if this is 3/3, well, then we've got to have 2/3 about here, 1/3 is there, so this would be your 2/3 right there. If this is 1/2 here, this would be 1 is the same as 2/2, right? Since we're working with halves with a 2 on the bottom. So the next spot would go about right here. That would be your 3/2, okay? Okay, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. 4/4 is here, right? And I want to do 5/4, which is going to be about right here. Okay, so 5/4 right there. Which is greater, 5/6 or 3/3. Now they gave us some number lines to kind of draw this out. So let's do 6 on this number line, and then we'll do thirds on this one. Okay. So if I do 6, I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut that part into thirds and that part. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be 5/6, right? And then the 1 would be like 6/6 there. Okay, and then for this, for thirds, I got 1/3, 2/3, and then the 1 would be 3/3, right? So which one's bigger? So 5/6 goes to there, 3/3 goes all the way to there, right? And so, like by our rule before, an improper fraction, 3/3, is always greater than a proper fraction. So I'm going to say 3/3. Remember, this symbol means is greater than, right? So bigger. So 3/3 is greater than 5/6. Okay. All right. So some more of these where we have to place these proper or improper fractions on our number line. So this is cut into fourths. 5/4 is going to go right there. So that was 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, and 5/4, right? So at 1/2, this would be 2/2, right? 1 is the same as 2/2, and then 3/2, right there. I want 5/5. Okay. Well, they can only put like one of the marks in here, but there's going to be 4 other ones, right? So we'd have like 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. Now, I probably don't need to do that because we know that 5/5 is equal to 1, isn't it? So this is our 4/5, so 5/5 would be right there, right? You have the same top and bottom number, that's always your value of 1. All right, 2/3, all right, so let's split this up. Here's 1/3, and then this one would be our 2/3, all right? 3/4, okay, I got 4/4 there, so I want to split this into, I'm going to cut it in half. This is 1/4 here, this one's 2/4, and then 3/4 is going to be right here. Now notice I'm not labeling all of them. I'm just going to label the one that they asked me to. So you can just count in your head. This one's 1/3, this one's 2/3. This is 1/4, 2/4, and there's 3/4 right there. Okay, and now I'm going to do 4/3. So I've got right here, I've got 1/3, 2/3, 3/3 right here, right? 3/3, and then one more of that same length. 4/3 would go about right here. Okay. All right. So which is greater, 4/5 or 1/2? So they give us some number lines. Maybe you can figure it out. You know, 1/2 is right in the middle. 4/5 is going to be real close to 5/5, right? If I go here, 5/5 is here, 4/5 is right next to it. Half is back here, right? So you probably know 4/5 is going to be greater than 1/2. But let's just draw it out here. So if I do fifths, 4/5 is going to be about right there, right? Because we got 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. Now, if I just have to do half, that's going to be right here, right? So 4/5 goes to here, 1/2 goes only to there. All right, so that tells me that 4/5 is greater than 1/2. All right, and that is it for this lesson.